Good morning. Happy Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom. Grace and peace in the mighty name of Jesus. All praise, glory, and honor go to the Father, Most High God of Shem, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Welcome to the Wake Up Show. I'm Brother Isaac K. Fingers. And today's lesson, as you can see from the title, is called White Privilege. Why does it exist? The reason this came about is because every time something goes down here in America, now I can't speak for the other nations, but every time something goes down here in America and someone black gets treated wrong, and when I mean black, I'm specifically talking about the Negro that calls himself African American. Okay, we're not talking about Hamites that live in America, because we rarely see Hamites get treated in a certain manner. And why? Because they're not under these curses. All right. But a lot of people, soon as something happens, I've seen videos, I've heard it come out of people's mouth. You know, these people got white privilege. There's a brother that's a Gentile that he actually tells his own people about them having this white privilege and how it's going to eventually come to an end. And he's getting ridiculed bad by his own people, Gentiles, even his own family, because he recognizes that that Europeans and Asians have a white privilege that was given to them. So what we're going to do before we get started with this, let's open up with Isaiah 28. We're going to start reading verse 9. This is just for the new people, so you can start understanding how to teach and how to be taught, and then how to teach from the scriptures. All right. So let's go to Isaiah 28. Let's read verse 9. Whom shall he teach knowledge? Who is he? He is the Lord. So how is he going to teach this knowledge to his priests? Not the entire world, to his priests. Whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. That's the nation of Israel, because in Exodus 19, he said you would be a kingdom of priests. That means if they're a whole kingdom of priests, there's no need for them to just teach each other all the time. They have to go out and teach the word. That's what they were chosen to do. All right. But how are they going to do it? Verse 10, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. Precept must be upon precept. Some people like to call it precept stacking. That's exactly what it is. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, as long as it's sound doctrine. Not trying to take a verse here and put it with this verse to fit your own doctrine. Has to be the Father's doctrine. Like Jesus said, he didn't come with his own doctrine. He came with the Father's doctrine and the Father's words. How is he going to teach this people? Verse 11, for with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak unto this people. So he's telling us, I'm going to teach these people with other languages, not just Hebrew. Because he knew for a time that we were going to mess up and be scattered to the four corners of the earth as slaves. Let's go to Isaiah 8. So he's teaching his people in other language, other tongues, other books that are Bibles in different, translated in different languages. That's how he's teaching his people. And then they have to teach like this. Isaiah 8, we're going to start at verse 16. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. Who is his disciples? Anyone who is teaching this word, sound doctrine, not false doctrine. They're teaching that Christmas doesn't exist. Easter doesn't exist when it comes to the kingdom of God. They're teaching about the Lord's law, commandments, and feast days. That's sound doctrine. Bind up the testimony and seal the law among my disciples. Skip down to verse 20. To the law and to the testimony. If they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. So if they're not teaching from Genesis to Revelation, there's no light in them. If they're only teaching out of the Old Testament and not the New, there's no light in them. They only teaching out of the New and not the Old, there's no light of them. If they're not teaching the law, but want to claim the testimony, there's no light in them. And how do we know this? Let's go to Revelation 14 and see the balance. The law and the testimony. That's the balance. If you have one without the other, this will not happen for you. Revelation 14 and 12. Here are the patience of the saints. So let's see what the saints did in order to get into the kingdom. Here are they that keep the commandments of God, the law and the faith of Jesus and the testimony. So you got to have balance. So this is how we learn. This is how we teach. This is how I teach. I'm going to teach in the English. I don't need Hebrew. I don't need Spanish. I don't need Greek. The Lord taught me in English. I'm going to teach you in English too. Let's go to Genesis 10. So like I was saying, white privilege, why does it exist? We're going to see why white privilege actually exists. And maybe some brothers and sisters will stop screaming, white privilege, you got white privilege, I can't stand you. We're going to find out why white privilege is here. All right. And it may shock a lot of you people that are new. Why is there white privilege? So we're going to start at Genesis 10. And we're going to look at 3 bloodlines. On this whole planet, there are many nations. All right. But there are only 3 bloodlines. We must understand that. You either come from, now everybody want to say, yeah, we all came from Adam and Eve. Okay, fine. But when we got to Noah, you can say we all came from Noah. But when we got to Noah, the Lord wrote here in the book 3 different bloodlines. And we're going to read them, but we're not going to read this whole chapter. Read the whole chapter on your own when you got time, but we're not going to read the whole chapter. So we're going to read the first bloodline. Genesis 10, verse 1. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, or Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. So there's only 3 boys, because remember, the seed only stays with the father. The mother is the plowing field, if you want to call it that, but the seed is with the fathers. All right. When you plant corn, you're going to get corn. You take it to another spot of the world and plant corn, you're going to get corn, because the seed carries the seed. The male carries the seed. So out of these 3 sons, there's 3 bloodlines. Let's look at the first one. The sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog and Medai and Javan and Tubal and Meshesh and Tyrus. Now you can read the rest on your own. Skip down to verse 5. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families in their nations. Now remember, the bloodline is the Gentiles. That's the bloodline. People, you're going to run into Hebrews that's going to say the northern kingdom are the Gentiles. This is where most of them do not go and read. All right. There's another spot. Well, I'm not going to give that away. I'm not going to get that away yet. But anyway, these are the Gentiles. Who are these people? These are white folks. These are the Europeans and the Asians. No, the Asians are not Moab and Ammon, people. They are not Moab and Ammon. These are the times of the Gentiles, and the very last war is going to be Gentiles against Gentiles. Gentiles didn't just start in Babylonia and just go towards Europe. They went east as well. All right. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families in their nations. All right. So these are what we would call today white folks and Asians and some Indians, too, that migrated here to America. All right. The isles of the Gentiles. That's one bloodline. Let's go to the next one, verse 6. And the sons of Ham. So this is the second bloodline. All of these would be the Hamites, or what we would call today the original Africans. All the sons of Ham, Cush, that's Ethiopia, the original Ethiopians, and Mizraim, the original Egyptians, and Phut, the original, what we call today, Libyans from Libya, and Canaan, all the Canaanites. So out of that one bloodline, there was 4 sons. All right. So now we got 2 bloodlines. We got the Gentiles and we got the sons of Ham, which are called the Hamites. All right. Skip to verse 20. And these are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, and their countries in their nations. So all the Hamites were in what we would call now North and Northeastern Africa. They did not occupy the whole continent of Africa. They only occupied everything north of the Sahara Desert. They didn't go past the Sahara Desert. But those are the Hamites. So we got the Gentiles, Northern Europe, the Europeans and the Asians, and then we got the Hamites who settled in Northern Africa. All right, let's skip down to verse 21. Unto Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber, and the brother of Japheth the elder, even unto him were born. So Shem now, that's the third son, and this is the third bloodline. He started having children, and all of them were called Semites. All right. Skip to verse 31. These are the sons of Shem, after their families, after their tongues, in their lands, after their nations. These are the families of the sons of Noah, after their generations, in their nations. By these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. So all the nations that we got, everybody can say, well, I'm French, I'm Italian, I'm English, I'm Spanish. They're all Gentiles by blood, different nations, but there's only 3 bloodlines on this whole planet. There are not 4. There's nobody that made it through except Noah and his 3 sons and their wives. So those are the bloodlines. All right. So we're going to go back to verse 2 again. Let's go, because that's what we're focusing on. We're focusing on the Gentiles, the sons of Japheth. All right. Verse 5, but these were the houses of the Gentiles, dividing their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. So that's what we're going to be dealing with, the Gentiles. And why did the Gentiles get what we call now white privilege? Let's go to Jeremiah 27. So you know what? Let's not go to Jeremiah 27 yet. I'm sorry. Let's start from the beginning of the privilege that actually started happening. Go back down to verse 6. I almost messed up. And the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan, and the sons of Cush, Seba, and Havilah, and Sabta, and Ramah, and Sabtecha, and the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. And Cush, now remember, that's Ham's first son. And Cush begot Nimrod. Nimrod is being a mighty one on the earth, and he was mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom. So this is the very first kingdom on the planet. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, ancient Babylon. That's the beginning of the Hamite rule over the known earth. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Out of the land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Calah. Now, Asher is Assyria, who are Hamites. All right. So this was the beginning of what should be called the Hamite dynasty. All right. We like to hear about Egypt having a dynasty. Well, this was a part of it. Everyone that ruled the known world at that time were Hamites. All right. Black privilege. Remember when we went into Egypt, we went in there friendly. We went in there, and then after, like the book says, they forgot all about Joseph. The one that was in power, who was Pharaoh, was a Hamite. So when he decided to put the Israelites in slavery, what was that? Black privilege, right? That's what it was. It was black privilege. But the Lord said ahead of time to Abraham, this was going to happen. All right. So there was a black privilege that happened. So from that time of Nimrod, now we can go to Jeremiah 27. From that period, all the way up to King Saul, Ham's children ruled the known world. All right. Wherever there was inhabitants and they found them, they ruled the whole world up until King Saul. All right. So when King Saul became king over Israel, Israel started to rule the whole world. Where did Israel come from? From those 3 boys, those 3 sons? Well, we already got rid of Ham, right? Because he first one to rule. So now it's either Japheth, or Shem. King Saul was a Semite. All of Israel, all of the Arabs who are Ishmaelites, all of the our twin brother Esau who are Edomites, they're all Semites. They're not Gentiles. Before we keep going, while it's still on my mind, I'm sorry, go back to Genesis 10. Let's clear something else up. I should have wrote this down, but it's just came into my remembrance. Because there's too many people trying to say that all Esau are white folks, or all white folks are Esau. Here's the thing. Let's go back to the sons of Japheth. So that's verse 2. Sons of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Medai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz. So the people that are calling themselves Jews right now and say that they're Ashkenazi Jews, they come from the Gentiles. All right. There are, when you study the book, there are those that call themselves Jews but do lie that are Edomites, but they hide among the Gentiles. Why? Because this is the Gentiles' rulership. So they use their money to try to influence the Gentiles. All right. Let's get that clear. All white people are not Esau. Some are Esau. Mostly are Gentiles. And these Ashkenazis are from Japheth, not from Esau. I hope that cleared up some stuff. And I thank you, Lord, for bringing that into my remembrance. So back to the Semite dynasty. So from King Saul to King David to King Solomon, this is when the Semites started to rule the whole known world. When you get to King Solomon, the whole world knew about King Solomon. They came, there was peace, nobody was afraid. Like I've said before, King Solomon had so much money. Why didn't all the other nations come against King Solomon and steal it? Because they all knew the Lord was with King Solomon. They knew that. They knew not to go up with King Solomon. King Solomon didn't need no walls. These people voluntarily came and gave them their money and gave tribute. And that's when the Semite dynasty happened, when it was just with Israel. But Israel started messing up. We already know in 1 Kings 11 that King Solomon, the wisest and the richest man to ever live, served other gods. And he messed up because he shouldn't have served them gods. All right. So that's when the downslide started happening for Israel, or the Semites. Okay. And so the Semites, we had, I can't remember how many kings we had in total. I used to know this, but you know, as you get old, you start forgetting things. But the kings started getting worse and worse than the last king. We had a few kings that restored order, that the Lord loved, but we have more wicked kings than anything. And what we're going to do is we're going to get down to the last 3 kings of Israel. All right. The last 3 kings of Israel we're going to read about in Jeremiah and 2 Chronicles 36. So remember, the Hamites ruled for a time, and then the Semites, which was the Israelites that came from Shem, ruled for a time. But the kings were so wicked, Lord said something else and did something. So let's start reading Jeremiah 27, verse 1. In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, the king of Judah, came this word unto Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, So here's the Lord speaking. Everything I'm about to read is the Lord talking through Jeremiah the prophet. Thus saith the Lord unto me, make thee bonds and yokes, and put them upon thy neck, and send them to the king of Edom. Oh, king of Edom, Esau, huh? Esau is a Semite, right? To the king of Moab. Moab is a Semite, Moabites. And to the king of the Ammonites. Oh, there's Semites as well. And to the king of Tyrus and to the king of Zidon by the hand of the messengers, which come to Jerusalem unto Zedekiah the king of Judah, and command them to say unto their masters, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, thus shall ye say unto your masters. Now here's the Lord saying, this is what you're going to tell these masters. So now this is Jesus or Christ saying these words we're about to read. I have made the earth, the man, and the beast that are upon the ground. St. John 1 says what? In the beginning, the word was with God. The word was God. Right? And later on down in that chapter says that he made everything. So we know this is Christ talking right here. I have made the earth, the man, and the beast that are upon the ground by my great power, and by my outstretched arm I have given unto whom it seemed meet to me. That's gangster. I did all this, and I'm going to do what I want to do. Verse 6, and now I have given all these lands unto the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant. Wait a minute. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, was a wicked king. But the Lord said, what again? And now I have given all these lands unto the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant. Why did the Lord call him my servant? And Nebuchadnezzar was a Gentile. He wasn't Israel. He wasn't a Hamite. You know why? Because this was the end of the Shemite dynasty. He gave it to Israel to rule righteously, and Israel messed up. So now he's handing it over to the Gentiles the same way he handed it over to Israel from the Hamites. And now I've given all these lands unto the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and the beast of the field I have given him also to serve him. This is why you need a hunting license. Because Nebuchadnezzar's dynasty, which is the Gentile dynasty, hasn't ended. It's still in existence right now. You can't go out. And I mean, some people do it illegally anyway, but you got to get a hunting license. Everything you want to do, you got to get permission. You got to get a license for everything. You think you can drive just because you want to? You got to get a driver's license, because if you get caught, it's a done deal. These days, you need a license for everything. They want to see your license to get a home, to ID, some type of license. Why? Because Nebuchadnezzar, the Lord gave it all over to him and his sons. Let's keep reading. And all nations shall serve him, and his sons and his son's son, until the very time of his hand come, and then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of him. And it shall come to pass that the nation and kingdom which will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, that nation I will punish, saith the Lord, with the sword, and with the famine, and with the pestilence, until I have consumed them by his hand. The Gentile dynasty still rules. You know why? Because the evidence is right over there in Africa. For those that might be almost my age, which is we have watched Africa get divided. Remember, it's gotten all divided up. By who? The Gentiles. Remember, there was a dictator that said, African for Africans. And he tried to kick out all the Asians. He was a dictator. Them Gentiles came in there and put him in check, didn't they? Every dictator in Africa is being ruled by a Gentile, believe it or not. Because if they were not being ruled, they would be taken out. The greatest example that we've seen in this year, in the 2000s, I believe it was, I don't think it happened before, yeah, was Gaddafi. Gaddafi was an Ishmaelite. So he wasn't a Gentile. He was a Semite. And what was Gaddafi trying to do? He had all this gold. And he was trying to start a whole new currency. And he was trying to make the United States of Africa and get rid of the dollar or the euro and just be, but the Gentiles was like, oh no, you ain't doing that. Off with ye head. But who said that he was gonna do that? Let's read it again. And it shall come to pass that the nation and the kingdom which will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, that nation I will punish, saith the Lord. So who killed Gaddafi? With the sword and with the famine. Africa's we all, when I was a shorty in the 80s, USA for Africa, all the famine, everybody hungry over there. Because a lot of people, a lot of nations refused to give in to the Europeans. And the Europeans came in there with guns blazing, everything. They still wouldn't submit. So the Lord has brought famine in that land. The evidence is sitting right in front of our face all the time, but we don't see it because we don't read the book. And with the pestilence until I've consumed them off the land. Therefore, hearken not ye to your prophets, nor to your diviners, nor to your dreamers, nor to your enchanters, nor to your sorcerers, which speak unto you, saying, ye shall not serve the king of Babylon. Here in America, y'all better watch these people who say we're going to rise up and be a nation among ourselves. You better watch it. What did the Lord say? Therefore, hearken not unto your prophets. We're going to do some more reading of what the Lord told us to do in this captivity. All right. Verse 10, for they prophesy a lie unto you to remove you far from your land, and that I should drive you out and ye should perish. Now that was when we were in the land of Israel, but it still applies today. Not our land, but he's telling us, don't go up against these Gentiles. And there's a lot of so-called leaders who's leading people in that direction and they don't even know it. Justice or else. I'm still waiting to see what the or else is going to be. The Lord put us in a system that is not justified for us. Who created that system? Who gave them the white privilege? We're going to see. We already read it started with Nebuchadnezzar. Let's keep on reading. Verse 11. But the nations that bring their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon and serve him, those will I let remain still in their own land, saith the Lord, and they shall till it and dwell therein. Now that's what the Lord said, not me. This is what the Bible's saying. So those nations that came under the yoke of the Gentiles, of Nebuchadnezzar and his sons, and all of that, he said, what again? Those nations I will let remain still in their own land, and they can till their own land, but they're going to have to give tribute to the Gentiles, those that are in power. That's what thus saith the Lord. That's why there's a lot of nations that still exist. All right. They still exist because they were like, okay, these white folks or these Asians, man, they got this gun, they got this cannon. I saw it make this loud sound and it blew half my troops away. Whatever they want, okay. Because the Lord is the one that said, I'm going to take them out. He gave time to the Hamites, starting with Nimrod, all the way up to King Saul. Then he gave time to the Semites through Israel, from King Saul all the way up to this time. And now it's Nebuchadnezzar's time to start the reign of the Gentiles. Verse 12, I spake also to Zedekiah the king of Judah, according to all these words, saying, bring your necks under the yoke of the king of Babylon, and serve him and his people, and live. Why will ye die, thou and thy people, by the sword, by the famine, and by the pestilence, as the Lord hath spoken against the nation that will not serve the king of Babylon? Therefore hearken not unto the words of the prophets that speak unto you, saying, ye shall not serve the king of Babylon, for they prophesy a lie unto you. So my advice for all of you so-called militant brothers, man, y'all better stand down and let the Lord handle the business he promised us. You trying to do it yourself, you're going to get slaughtered. You're going to get killed. Thus saith the Lord. Verse 15, for I have not sent them, saith the Lord, yet they prophesy a lie in my name, that I might drive you out, and that ye might perish, ye and the prophets that prophesy unto you. I even see my own brothers talking about, we don't need no cowards. We need men. Some of y'all done forgot about them curses. Y'all love to sit up on the corners or on live feeds and tell everybody about these curses, but you ain't applying it. That's what makes me scared for my people. Because not just Hebrews, but other so-called religions are trying to stir up all God's people to fight. And it's going to be horrible. I understand why Jacob's trouble is coming. I totally understand why it's coming. But back to the lesson. So this was Zedekiah. This was to, not Zedekiah. It was to Zedekiah. This was the last king. Now let's go see in 2 Chronicles 36, all this come into play. That was the warning that Jeremiah the prophet had said unto Zedekiah. So let's go to 2 Chronicles 36 and watch what actually happened. Because the Lord had warned him and said, hey, put the yoke around your neck and serve this king. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at 2 Chronicles 36 at verse 5. We're going to watch two kings before Zedekiah. Zedekiah witnessed two kings before him rebel and be evil and still went stupid. 2 Chronicles 36 verse 5. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. In the sight of the Lord his God, against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and bound him in fetters and carried him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried of the vessels of the house of the Lord to Babylon and put them in his temple at Babylon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and his abominations which he did, and that which was found in him, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. And in Jehoiachin, his son, reigned in his stead. So we just saw Nebuchadnezzar come and take away Jehoiakim, right? Verse 9. Jehoiachin was 8 years old. Now, that's a misprint. You can go to 2 Kings 24, verse 8, and see that he was 18. He was not 8 years old, all right? You go to 2 Kings 24, verse 8, you will read where Jehoiakim was 18. Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. 3 months and 10 days, he did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. And when the year was expired, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon and the goodly vessels of the house of the Lord, and made Zedekiah his brother king over Judah and Jerusalem. So now we're here to Zedekiah. So remember what we read in Jeremiah, when Jeremiah came and told Zedekiah, what thus saith the Lord, put your yoke up under the put a yoke around your neck and serve King Nebuchadnezzar. Wisdom, dude should have done it, because he just watched his brother and another king before him get taken away by King Babylon, the king of Babylon. So now let's start reading about Zedekiah, verse 11. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, and humbled not himself before Jeremiah the prophet, speaking from the mouth of the Lord. So the Lord warned Zedekiah, do this or I'm going to do this to you. And he didn't heed the words, period. Probably called Jeremiah a hater. Verse 13. He also rebelled against Nebuchadnezzar. Oh, so he was trying to fight him. He's just defying whatever orders came from Babylon. He was defying them, who had made him swear by God, but he stiffened his neck. So Nebuchadnezzar put Zedekiah as king of Israel and made him swear by God. But he stiffened his neck and hardened his heart from turning unto the Lord God of Israel. Moreover, all the chief of the priests and the people transgressed very much after all the abominations of the heathen. All the other nations that was around about, we started serving their gods again. Remember, when Solomon was around, we didn't do it. Till Solomon started doing it, we started doing it again. And here comes the bottom of the hill now. Moreover, the chief priests and all the people transgressed very much after all the abominations of the heathen, and polluted the house of the Lord, which he had hallowed in Jerusalem. And the Lord God of their fathers sent unto them his messengers, rising up bedtimes and sending, because he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. So the Lord sent messengers to the people, warning them, because he had compassion for his people. Jesus is sitting there like, come on, y'all, get it together, get it together. I'm going to send more of them and more of them, because these people are stiff-necked. And they're stiff-necked because the king is stiff-necked. But what did Israel do? Verse 16, but they mocked the messengers of God and despised his words, not the messenger's words. They despised the Lord's words and misused the prophets until the wrath of the Lord arose against his people, till there was no remedy. So they mocked the messengers. the messengers had started telling them what thus saith the Lord. Y'all serving other gods. Keep the commandments. Y'all going astray. And they're like, man, what you talking about? We live in grace. And they misused. They despised his words, and then they misused the prophets. They beat and killed these prophets. And then, like the Lord said, until the wrath of the Lord arose against his people, till there was no remedy. Therefore, he brought upon them the king of the Chaldees, who slew their young men with the sword in the house of the sanctuary. Slew the young men? Ooh. Don't we see that today? We turn on the news, oh, so many young men and women being being killed. And the main one we always see is the police. It's the police. It's the police. But it's also us as well. But a lot of you guys get mad about this because we're still doing what our forefathers did. We will not turn to the Lord. We're going to turn to ourselves. We're going to try to fix the problem ourselves. And it's not going to get fixed by us. Start at verse 17 again. Therefore, he brought upon them the king of the Chaldees, who slew their young men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary, and had no compassion upon young man, nor maiden, old man, or him that stooped for age. He gave them all unto his hand. That's what the Lord did. He gave them all into his hand. It didn't matter. Babies, old people, crutches. He gave them all over because he tried to warn all of them. And they killed the prophets. And all the verse 18, and all the vessels of the house of God, great and small, and treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king, and the princes, and all these he brought to Babylon. And they burnt the house of God, and break down the wall of Jerusalem, and burnt the palaces thereof with fire, and destroyed all the goodly vessels. And them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babylon, where they were servants unto him and his sons until the reign of the king of Persia, the kingdom of Persia, to fulfill the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah, until the land hath enjoyed her Sabbaths. For as long as she lay desolate, she keep her Sabbaths, and fulfilled 70 years. So we were taken off as slaves. We ruled. We already saw what happened to, and I'm just talking about Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Saw what happened to our sister, the northern kingdom, being carried off by the Assyrians. And then we turn around and do the same thing, even worse. And the Lord was warning through these prophets. And we didn't do nothing. We didn't do it right. So now the Lord sent the Gentiles in to destroy Jerusalem, the temple and everything there, and burnt everything. That's how mad the Lord was with us. This is when white privilege started. What you call today is white privilege is when this started. That's why it exists. Because our forefathers were stiff-necked and they did not want to hear the words of the Lord. The same way a lot of people today still don't want to learn or hear the words of the Lord. So now we go from Nebuchadnezzar starting the reign of the Gentiles into the Medo-Persians. Verse 22. 2 Chronicles 36, verse 22. Now in the first year of Cyrus, the king of Persia, that the word of the Lord spoken by mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished. The Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, the king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom. Now, Cyrus was a Gentile. This is still the reign of the three bloodlines. This is still the reign of the Gentiles. Then he made a proclamation through all of his kingdom and put it also in writing, saying, thus saith Cyrus, the king of Persia, all of the kingdoms of the earth hath the Lord God of heaven given me. Come on, people. This dude is not Israel. This dude is a Gentile. But he said, what? He said, all the kingdoms of the earth have the Lord God of heaven given me. It started with Nebuchadnezzar, and it was handed right on over to the Medo-Persians. And he hath charged me to build him an house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Who is there among you of all his people? These powers that be, this is where you get people you got to understand. The people that are in power, they know that you're Israel. Their people may not know because of false doctrines that are out here, but everybody that's at the top, they know who you are. No matter what color they are, they know who you are. Which is in you, who is among you of all his people? The Lord his God be with him, and let him go up. This is when white privilege started. Let's go to Jeremiah 29. That's when it started. Who gave it to them? The Lord. And why? Because we had it and did not do what thus saith the Lord. So we took the privilege from us and gave it to the Gentiles. And yeah, they wicked too, just like we were wicked. Quit trying to always think the white man is wicked. The Lord said in Jeremiah 2, thou hast taught the wicked ones thy ways. Jeremiah 29. So now we're going to read Jeremiah, well, the Lord writes a letter through Jeremiah to send to the people that's in Babylon who was taken away. Now he's going to tell us, well, now that you're taken away, now that you want to listen to us, now that there's white privilege over you, now I'm going to tell you how to live in this captivity. All right. Jeremiah 29, verse 1. I'm sorry. Jeremiah 29. Let's start at verse 4. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, unto all that are carried away captives, whom I have caused to be carried away from Jerusalem to Babylon. Now let's understand something. This is a letter to the exiles in Babylon, but this letter is applying to all of us that's exiled around the world too. So let's not sit up and just be like, well, see, that was just to them. The Lord is speaking through us. If it was just to them, it wouldn't be in this book for all of us to read. Hello. All right, so let's start at verse 4 again. All right, praise the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the Lord God of Israel, unto all that are carried away captives, whom I have caused to be carried away from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build ye houses, dwell in them, and plant gardens. Eat the fruit of them. Take ye wives, and beget sons and daughters. And take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters, that ye may increase there and not diminish. So he's telling us, be fruitful and multiply, right? Replenish Israel, the ones I had to kill off while you in captivity. Maybe this is one of the reasons why Planned Parenthood was planted in our neighborhoods. Ooh, I shouldn't have went there. But anyway, verse 7. And seek the peace of the city, whether I have caused you to be carried away captives. Ooh, so he's telling us how to live. He told us to seek the peace of the city, right? Seek that peace and pray unto the Lord for it. Who's really doing that? When something go down, who's really sitting up and praying to the Lord righteously for the things that go on in the city? Especially here in Chicago. Verse 8, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, let not your prophets and your diviners that be in the midst of you deceive you, neither hearken unto your dreams, which ye cause to be dreamed. For they prophesy falsely unto you in my name. I have not sent them, saith the Lord. People, you got to watch who you're following. You got to watch who you listening to. We got a lot of brothers that started off with some Islamic before that. Talking about rise up. How you going to rise up against a nation and you're in captivity to them? How you going to rise up against a nation that has way more firepower than you will ever have? How you going to do that? Yeah, I'm talking about militant groups. The Lord said, don't listen to these people. Why? Because they're going to get you killed. We're going to take up arms. Okay? The Lord is the one that said in Jeremiah 27, bow down to Nebuchadnezzar and his sons. If you don't, I'm going to kill you. And then right here, he's telling us how to live in this captivity that we're in. Seek the peace of the city, whether I have caused you to be carried away captives. Verse 10, for thus saith the Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished. Okay, we're going to skip over that because that is Babylon, but he's still telling us through this whole lesson. I mean, this whole chapter is to us as well. Verse 11, for I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, the thoughts of peace and not evil, to give you an expected end. Then shall ye call upon me, and ye shall go and pray unto me, and I will hearken unto you. That's what all these messengers, including myself, trying to tell the people right now. Hearken unto the Lord. Turn back to him. As a nation, he will help us if, as a nation, we turn and pray to God and keep his commandments, laws, and statutes. Every time our ancestors, read the book of Judges, every time our ancestors went into captivity for breaking the commandments, they kept it, they prayed to God, and God brought them out. Verse 12, then ye shall call upon me, and ye shall go and pray. I read that already. Verse 13, and ye shall seek me and find me when ye shall search for me with all your heart. With all your heart, you shall find the Lord. And you got to do this under the rulership of white privilege. Verse 14. And I will be found of you, saith the Lord, and I will turn away your captivity, and I will gather you from all the nations and from all the places whither I have driven you, saith the Lord, and I will bring you again into the place whence I caused you to be carried away captive. This is how I know the Lord is talking to the rest of us through this chapter, because we read earlier what we were going to read, where it was just a letter to the Israelites that were in Babylon. But he said here, and I will gather you from all nations and from the places where I've driven you, saith the Lord, and I will bring you again into this place where I've caused you to be carried away captive. Verse 15, because ye have said, the Lord hath raised us up prophets in Babylon. Know that thus, saith the Lord, of the king that sitteth upon the throne of David. and of all the people that dwelleth in this city, and your brethren that are not gone forth with you into captivity. Let's understand something. Everybody didn't go into captivity. And even unto this day, there are some Israelites still that never went out of Israel. Verse 17. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will send upon them the sword. Now let's also take this to Africa. All right? Because a lot of us escaped from Israel, ran into Africa because we look like the Africans, right? Remember earlier in the lesson, I said the Africans were only in the northern part, the northeastern part of Africa, not the whole continent. None of them went past the Sahara Desert. But guess who did? We did. That's why south of the Sahara Desert, which they call Sub-Sahara, black people was popping up all over the place. Because that was us running from the Romans who had what? White privilege. But while we were there was some who didn't get sold off to the rest of the world. So what is the Lord saying here? Let's read it again. Verse 17. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will send upon them the sword, the famine, and the pestilence, and I will make them like vile figs that cannot be eaten. So they are so evil. So those that didn't escape, that were still in the land, he sent them all this stuff. No, brothers, I said I'm sending you around the world. But since you managed to stay here, I'm sending these things upon you. Oh, some of y'all went over here to Africa, the West Coast and South Africa. And you guys were even worse because you sold your own brothers. The Hamites weren't the only ones that sent us and sold us to the Gentiles. A lot of our own brothers did that too. That's why you see these nations apologizing. The Hamites ain't going to apologize. This is why you see these African nations, West Coast, South, maybe even East, apologizing because they realize we sold our own brothers. But what did the Lord call them? That cannot be eaten. They are so evil. Now, I don't hate my brothers and sisters for doing what they did. Hey, they was trying not to be sold off. But when they didn't get sold off, what came upon them? The sword, the famine, the pestilence. We talked about that earlier. The same thing that came to the nations of Africa that wouldn't serve the Gentiles came to Israel in Africa. Verse 18, and I will persecute them with the sword, with the famine, and with the pestilence, and I will deliver them to be removed to all the kingdoms of the earth, to be a curse and an astonishment and a hissing and a reproach among all the nations whither I have driven them, because they have not hearkened to my word, saith the Lord, which I sent unto them by my servants, the prophets, rising up early and sending them, but ye would not hear, saith the Lord. This is why all of this white privilege is here. Because again, we will not listen to what thus saith the Lord. We won't. We didn't then, and we ain't doing it now. Let's go to Isaiah 42. Isaiah 42. We are the ones who actually gave the privilege that we had at one time to the Gentiles, to the white man, to the Asian. Understand something, people, especially all them brothers that want to say that the Asians are Moabites and Ammonites. Listen, when we talk about Ruth, these brothers want to sit up and say, no, she wasn't a Moabite. She was an Israelite. And I can't remember where they go off the top of my head, but they go someplace where they try to say, well, all the Moabites were killed. That's why Ruth was an Israelite. So if all the Moabites were killed, why are you reading something that says the Moabites were sent to the east? And then you add on the word far east. So if they were all killed, that can't be Moabites in China and Japan. The real thing is they're Gentiles. All the Asians that are white skinned like Europeans are Gentiles as well. I got a lesson that I'm gonna redo again. I think it's called all nations can be salvation for all nations. I do the 3 bloodline thing again, and I show how the Native Americans who came here first migrated from Asia over the Bering Strait down to northern and southern America, and they are Gentiles. But that's a whole nother other lesson. Isaiah 42. I don't want to sidetrack myself. So what we're going to witness at the last battle is Gentiles of the East, the Gentiles, which are the Chinese, all the kings of the East. We know the kings of the East are going to come against the kings of the West, and it's going to be Gentiles fighting Gentiles. The biggest populated spots, one in Europe, is all of Western Europe, that whole landmass. And then when it comes to Asia, they're all in China. Most of the Russians are near Europe. The rest of Russia is not really that occupied. But the Fertile Crescent for China and all of the rest of the kings of the East, who Russia's going to get with, they're all in one part of China. Near Japan, Korea, Malaysia. They're eventually going to come west and fight against the West. It will be Gentiles fighting Gentiles, not Moabites and Ammonites fighting Esau. So let's get back to this. The Lord said that he was going to be doing all of this stuff to us because we had privilege at one time and we gave it up. How did we give it up? We kept breaking his commandments. We kept breaking his original covenant. And then he finally gave all power over the earth to Nebuchadnezzar and his sons and his sons' sons and so forth. Now, let's go to Isaiah 42, verse 23. Who among you will give ear to this? All right. Who's going to really actually listen and see the title that says white privilege? Why does it exist? Who's going to give ear among you? And who will hearken to hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil, and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? Who gave them the white privilege that y'all scream about all the time? The Lord gave it to them because he gave us to them for a spoil. What is a spoil? When people go into a city, Jericho, when we went into Jericho, we took the spoil. We took everything. This isn't, oh, well, we're spoiled and all that. No, they took the goods. They took it all. We were a good. We still are goods. But who gave Jacob for a spoil? Here in America, we say it all the time. And there's documentaries that white folks have put out. If it wasn't for free labor for this, that they used the slaves, America would not be what it is today. It would not be what it is today. These people had to come and do all this work themselves. And they were like, nah, I'm getting sunburned. Then they tried to use the Native Americans who were Gentiles, their brothers, who didn't have this type of melanin, and they were dying off from diseases. They was out there in the sun having problems too, being out there too long. So they looked towards Africa. Get this book called Black Indians, and you'll see the relationship between us and the Indians, and then us and the Europeans, and the Europeans and the Indians. So they used us because they could keep us out there in that field all day. And they made money. Most of the biggest companies in the world now that started in America started because of our ancestors' free labor. Ah, who gave Jacob for a spoil, and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned? For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. Therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle, and it has set him on fire round about. Yet he knew not. This is why you're protesting. This is why you're upset when you see something. This is why you're angry. And it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart. All this stuff going on, and you won't even look in this book and find out why and consider the Lord is doing this. You just got to blame the white man and scream, white privilege, when the Lord has given us the evidence right here in front of our face. Let's go to Leviticus 26. The Lord is the one that did this. He's the one that gave white privilege to those that are in power. Leviticus 26. He warned us ahead of time. He warned us, but you know, Israel, we stiff-necked. And that's why these curses won't go away until Jesus comes back. Leviticus 26. Who gave Israel to the robbers and Jacob for a spoil? Well, let's read. We already know that it was the Lord, but he told us ahead of time he was going to do this. Let's read Leviticus 26 and verse 17. And I will set my face against you, and ye shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and ye shall flee when none pursueth. Why? Those that hate us reign over us. So let's get something straight. This isn't the whole white Gentile nation. There are plenty white folks that understand what we're going through. There are plenty white folks that are sympathetic to what's going on with us. I'm speaking about those in power. They that hate you shall reign over you. And then you have people that listen to those people in power, and they start catching on to that spirit of going off on us too recently. But why is that happening? Because we won't keep the commandments of God. Every time we keep the commandments of God and be obedient to him, nobody could touch us. But since we're not doing it and they're touching us, we're trying to figure out, where did this white privilege come from? Skip down to verse 25. And I will bring a sword upon you. The Lord is bringing a sword upon you, right? How many of y'all know that bullets and guns is a sword as well? See, we're in modern day times. Back then, slay them with a sword. But now, the people that hate us and reign over us have a military force. And in lower states, it's called police. And let me say this, not all police are bad. We got a bunch of police that are good, but there are certain ones that got a problem up here. There's some of them, they don't even know what they're doing. You can read that. Maybe we should. No, Isaiah 10. You can read in Isaiah 10 where the Lord said he was going to send the Assyrians against us, and they have in their nature to destroy, but they're not going to know why they're coming after you, Israel. Verse 25, and I will bring a sword upon you, shall avenge the quarrel of my covenant. And when ye are gathered together within your cities, I will send a pestilence among you, and ye shall be delivered into the land, into the hand of your enemy. The Lord warned us about this. Let's go to Zechariah 11. Trying to show you where white privilege started and why it still exists today. Because the Lord gave it over to the Gentiles. And the Lord kept trying to tell us, keep the commandments, or I'm going to have these Gentiles come down on you. And it's trickled down from the powers that be that came down on us to the actual people. When they listen to the powers that be. Ever since we got a new president here in America, a lot of the people are getting puffed up. And y'all watching it, y'all see the videos all the time. Zechariah 11, verse 4. Why are they acting like this? Zechariah 11 and 4. Thus saith the Lord my God, feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors slay them, and hold themselves not guilty. This is why when you see, these are the reasons, and ain't nobody trying to tell y'all this. And when they, and because they're not telling you, you continue to keep running these streets asking, why is this happening to us? Why is that happening? Why do these people get white privilege? Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. They that sell them say, blessed be the Lord, for I am rich. You were sold by these people. You were sold by somebody else, and they got rich off of you. You could look up a lot of companies that made millions off of our ancestors. And it was because of us. It wasn't because they, yeah, they're greedy. It wasn't because they're just that evil. The Lord put it on them because we handed over our privilege to the white folks. In our privilege, we ruled righteously, but we handed it over to them, and the powers that be do evil, and they got rich. And their own shepherds pity them not. Oh, so is this why there's a lot of pastors? Isn't this supposed to be here in America, separation of church and state? But these pastors will have these politicians come and speak in their church, who their own shepherds pity them not. Why don't our own pastors and shepherds pity us not? Because they getting paid. As long as they play the game that's going on, they get paid. As long as they trying to steer you up into anger to do something stupid, Israel, they get paid. They pity you not. And it's a shame when it's Israelite pastors or church pastors that look black that do this. It's even worse for them because you know who your people are. And this is what you originally call selling out. That's selling out, okay? But the people do this. The possessors slay them. They say that they're not guilty. Why do they say that they're not guilty? Let's go to Jeremiah 50. Why do these people who sit up and slay you, Why do we hear not guilty verdicts when the police kill one of us? Jeremiah 50 and verse, I'm in the wrong one. Jeremiah 50 verse 6. My people hath been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. Who are the shepherds? Them same pastors we've been talking about. Them same pastors we've been talking about that pity you not. Why are they led astray? Because they're not telling you to keep the commandments, laws, and statutes of the God of Israel. Jesus tells you himself, if you want eternal life, to keep the commandments of God. But these pastors, pity you not, don't tell you these things. For my people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. All that found them have devoured them. All the nations that found us have devoured us because we gave our privilege over to them. And their adversaries said, we offend not, because they have sinned against the Lord. So why are they getting these not guilty verdicts? Because they say to themselves, we offend not, because they have sinned against the Lord. The habitation of justice, even the Lord, the hope of their fathers. That's why you screaming out here, no justice, no peace. The higher powers don't care about that. They care less. They making money off you. You go out here to disturb whatever expressway or street that you want to. They care less. All they're going to do is send their police to keep you under control. That's it. They're making way too much money to be concerned about your problems. We offend not, because they have sinned against the Lord. Deuteronomy 32. Deuteronomy 32, we're going to start reading at verse 20. All of this quote unquote white privilege was given to them by the Lord because you didn't want to keep it. Israel, we did not want to keep it. Our ancestors, we was warned over and over again in King Zedekiah days, and we killed the prophets. We beat them, didn't want to hear his word, so it was handed over to the Gentiles. And that's why it's called white privilege unto this day. Deuteronomy 32, let's read. Let's do some more reading. 32, verse 20. This is Jesus again speaking. This is a song of Moses. Verse 20, he said, I will hide my face from them, and I will see what their end shall be, for they are a forward generation, children in whom there is no faith. He talking about us. He talking about his chosen people, his kings, his priests. I done gave them all this knowledge, and they ain't got no faith. And then they gonna turn around and serve other gods. After I just pulled them out of Egypt, and the mixed multitude that is with them saw this and turned to me. Deuteronomy 32, verse 21. They have moved me to jealousy, which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. The foolish nation isn't just America. Everywhere we at on this planet, most likely that nation is foolish. But we just gonna talk about here in America. That's why you out there, again, protesting, mad, angry. Why? Because we made the Lord mad and angry, and we still doing it. We still do it. We celebrate holidays that serve other gods, but then we turn around and say, nah, this is all right. Nah, this is okay. We cherry picking. We cherry picking holidays. Y'all need to start researching every holiday and you'll find most of them are serving other gods. What happened last weekend here in Chicago? Bud Billiken Day Parade. Bud Billiken Day Parade is masked for the children as going back to school day parade. And it's on the Sabbath. You don't think that has made the Lord jealous? We continue to serve other gods. Even Israel, that got their mind, that so-called woke up. But like I say all the time, most of y'all that's woke up need to get up out the bed. Stop hitting that snooze alarm. We keep training our children. Oh, it's coming out. It's coming out. We keep training our children. This is the thing that gets me right here every time. When we train our children to serve other gods because we think it's all right. So to all you children that are going to college, don't make no pledges to nobody. Don't make no pledges to no organization. None whatsoever. Because they are serving other gods. We're not supposed to be around here using Greek letters, serving other gods. You're being sent to the slaughter. The same thing that our ancestors did for Molech, sending them directly to the fire for another god, we doing it ourselves too. Sending them straight to college to pledge to an organization that's serving another god. And then wondering why we getting killed and slaughtered out here in these streets. Why? Because the Lord is upset with this. Lord is, it's making me upset. And I ain't trying to get upset on the Lord's Sabbath day. So yeah, children, you go to college, be a man, be your own man, be a woman, be your own woman. You get with a clique, okay, you friends. But don't make no pledges. Don't make no oaths that you can't keep. Because the Lord don't want you to make a pledge or an oath to nothing. Because if you can't keep it, you've sinned against the Lord. If that organization says you got to come and do this on the Sabbath day with us, you got to do it. Or you broke that oath. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Now let's get back to this lesson. This is why white privilege is right here. Because even unto today, we still serving other gods. And when the messenger comes and tells you that, you want to kill him. You want to discredit him. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to calm down. I care about kids too much, man, because after the stuff that I've learned, yeah, that made me angry. This stuff wasn't talking to me, talk to me. But I care about kids too much because I see the parents doing things and then they're teaching their kids to do the same thing, yet they say they're in this word. So that white privilege is going to stay here because we ain't no different. Skip down to verse 23. Who is the one that said he was going to provoke them to anger with a foolish nation? The Lord did. Skip down to verse 23. I will heap mischiefs upon them. I will spend mine arrows upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger. The Lord is saying he's doing this. And devoured with the burning heat and with the bitter destruction, I will send the teeth of beasts upon them. With the poison of the serpents of the dust. The sword without and the terror within shall destroy both the young man and the virgin. And the suckling also with the man of gray hairs. Again, the Lord is saying again, it don't matter if you old with a cane or if you a newborn baby. He said that he was going to destroy old and young. And I'm going to tell you something. The Lord ain't playing. He killed a baby. Not saying that the baby ain't going to get into heaven. 9 times out of 10, it probably will. A lot of these children is being taken out like that. That makes us sorrowful. But let's always remember, King David committed adultery, got Bathsheba pregnant, and when the baby was born, the Lord killed the baby. So what we're reading right here ain't no different. Yes, Jesus is mad. Let's go to St. John 19. Let's see that Jesus had to deal with white privilege as well. Let's read this. All right. I'm cool now, y'all. I got stirred up because, again, I just remembered this is the beginning of the school season. And usually in the summertime, I say something about that. And I totally forgot. And it just came back to me. Do not go to college and serve other gods. St. John 19. So let's see. The white privilege again started with Nebuchadnezzar. Then we read how I got to King Cyrus. We already knew when the Greeks came, they had the white privilege, right? Because they're Gentiles. So now now the Romans, who are Gentiles, not Esau, have the privilege. Let's read St. John 19, verse 10. Then saith Pilate unto him, Speakest thou not unto me? Who is he speaking to? He's speaking to Jesus. This is when Jesus is standing before Pilate, who is a Roman governor of the Gentiles, the white folks. Then saith Pilate unto him, Speakest thou not unto me? Knowest thou not that I have power to crucify thee and have power to release thee? Let's see what Jesus said. Jesus answered, Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Some people don't read that the way that this lesson is putting it. Jesus is telling him, all the power you got come from above. So who was ruling at that time? Who was this black man standing in front of? This white governor / judge. Isn't that the same thing that happens these days? All power is given to you. And yes, we have black judges, but they got to keep what? That law. Let's read 11 again. Who gave the authority of what Pilate has right now? Jesus answered, Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Therefore he hath delivered me unto thee, hath the greater sin. But he said, except it were given thee from above. Jesus had to deal with white privilege when he was here. Let's understand something. I should have put this in here. Remember King Herod? King Herod. Remember King Herod looked like he was Esau. He was an Edomite. He was Esau, but he looked like the Gentiles. That's why the Gentiles allowed him to be the so-called king of Israel. But and he had white privilege, right? So when he found out that Jesus was going to be born, or the Messiah was going to be, he put out a decree to go kill all them kids 2 and under, after he told the wise men to come back, and they didn't come back, right? So Esau who may look like the Gentiles, they use their white privilege too. But it's the time of the Gentiles. And who gave them all that power? Jesus just said, except it were given thee from above. And why was it given? Let's go to St. Luke 19. Why was it given? Because you gave it up, Israel. We had the privilege at one time. Before us, the Hamites had the privilege, and they were so wicked and evil, the Lord gave it over. And why did he actually give it? Because we asked for it. Remember, in Samuel, we begged the Lord for a king. And we shouldn't have. So then the Lord picked Saul because we asked for it. And then we had it. And then we blew it, and he gave that privilege to the Gentiles, or white folks, or Europeans and Asians. That's why white privilege still exists today, because of what? The Gentiles. Luke 19 and 41. Luke 19 and 41. And when he was come near, now this is Jesus again, because again, later on, Jesus told Pilate, all the power that you get come from above. Let's look at some other power that was given to the Gentiles because of us. Luke 19, verse 41. When he was come near, he beheld the city and wept over it, saying, if thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace. Jesus knew everything that was supposed to be ours, but he crying over it. But now they are hid from thine eyes. For the day shall come upon thee that thine enemies shall cast a trench about thee and compass thee round about. Cast thee around and keep thee in on every side, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. The Lord is telling us when 70 AD was coming. He was prophesying, you guys don't even understand what's about to happen. He knew why, because it was given to him from up above. He has the knowledge. The Lord called him from the beginning. And who did that? The Gentiles, not the Edomites. The Roman army came. Let's go to, we just did Luke 19. Yeah, let's go to Luke 21. The Roman army came. And they were the ones who sacked Jerusalem and flattened it. Not one stone was upon another stone. So that means there was not one stone that was sitting on another stone. So what happened is when they came, they flattened everything. All the stones were like this, next to each other. So the question is, where in the world did that Wailing Wall come from? Somebody put stones back up and trying to say this was a part of the temple. Don't be fooled, people. The Lord gives us the answers right here in this book. Don't be fooled. St. Luke 21. Luke 21 and verse 20. And we shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies. Then know that the desolation thereof is near. Let them which be, when these armies start coming around, know that desolation is near. He's giving them a warning, right? Giving us a warning as well. Then let them which are in Judea flee into the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the country enter into thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. Why? Because a child is going to slow you down. If you're trying to hide and the child baby start crying, Romans gonna find you. Let's all remember what happened in Egypt when they was trying to kill all of the boys. Moses' mother, after a while, she couldn't hide them no more. But there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. That's Israel. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword. This is Jesus telling what was going to happen in the year 70 AD. And shall be led away captive unto all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Jerusalem, this is now when it was just completely over for Israel. The Gentiles, who were the Europeans, okay, again, it's the Roman army, and they're all Gentiles, including the centurion that spoke to Jesus. He was not an Israelite. Lord said, I've seen more faith in this white dude than I've seen in all of Israel. So I can understand why Jesus was crying, because he knew this destruction was coming. Because why? This forward generation has no faith. And they keep turning their backs on the Lord's commandments, laws, and statutes, as Jesus told them to do to get eternal life. But who came in Jerusalem and flattened it? The Roman army, General Titus. And they flattened it. And what were they? Shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, not of Esau, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. The times of the Gentiles is still here, people. It's not over with. The times of the Gentiles will stop when Jesus comes back and takes down all the nations that are under the Gentiles. This is why white privilege is still here. This is why white privilege is still here. For those that believe that all white people are Esau. Do I got time? Yeah, let's do it real quick. For those that believe that white people are Esau, and to my brothers at WOJ, take this down. We just read where it said that the trodden down of the Gentiles, right? Let's go to the book of Obadiah, brothers. He said they will be led captive into all nations, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Now, if people want to say that white folks is all Esau, wait a minute, there's a problem. I got an issue. Because if you're saying that the Romans was Edomites and they're all Esau, then what is this saying? Obadiah. Let me read. Let's start at verse 9. Obadiah 9. And thy mighty men, O Timon, shall be dismayed, to the end of everyone of the mount of Esau shall be cut off by slaughter. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall come, against thy brother Jacob, right? Shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side. Here it is. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side. So let's keep reading. In the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou was one of them. So the strangers, the Roman army came. The Gentiles came and flattened the whole place. But Esau stood on the other side. That's two different nations, people. Don't let these brews tell you that all white people are Esau. Gentiles are white folks. Esau looked like Gentiles because Esau stood on this side and watched the Gentiles take us out. And then they went in too. and cast lots upon Jerusalem. Even thou was one of them. Now they go in and catch and start casting lots. Verse 14, skip down to verse 14. Nah, let's keep reading. Verse 12, back to 12. But thou shouldest not look in the day of thy brother, in the day that he became a stranger. Neither shouldest thou rejoice over the children of Judah in the city of the day of their destruction. Neither should thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. Thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Esau wasn't the one who took Israel out. The Gentiles did that. Thou shouldest not looked upon their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor laid hands on the substance in the day of their calamity. Neither shouldest thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. Esau now was stopping us from running away. Neither shouldest thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day. So Esau took us to the Gentiles. Brothers and sisters that's following that doctrine that all white people are Esau. Here's your evidence right here that Esau stood on the other side and watched the white people or the Gentiles take us away. And then they stood in the crossway and said, hey, they trying to escape. Take them. All right. Got that off my mind. Praise the Lord. Let's go to Lamentations. 2 more verses and I'm done. Lamentations. We're going to start reading at verse 1. Because again, they have this white privilege. And it is very sorrowful when we watch us get mowed down, when we don't get equal rights. We've been raised and told that we have equal rights, but we really don't, because we see it happening. And then we're shocked because we've been raised, we should have equal rights. And then when things happen to us and other people don't get convicted for it because they say, y'all the ones that sinned against your Lord, then we get mad and angry and sometimes sorrowful. So let's read Lamentations verse 7. Lamentations verse 7. Jerusalem remembered in the days of her affliction and of her miseries all her pleasant things that she had in the days of old, when her people fell into the hand of the enemy, and none did help her. The adversary saw her and did mock her Sabbath. So when her people, we fell into the day of the enemy, nobody helped us. Not no other king, no other nation said, let's go help these people. Because the Lord was behind all of this. Verse 8, Jerusalem have grievously sinned. Therefore she is removed. All that honor her despise her, because they have seen her nakedness. So everybody that honored Israel despised Israel now, because they've seen her nakedness. Yeah, she sighteth and turneth backward. Her filthiness is in her skirts. She remembereth not her last end. Therefore she came down wonderfully. Therefore she came down wonderfully. She laid no comfort. She had no comfort. O Lord, behold my affliction, for the enemy hath magnified himself. The enemy, white privilege, has magnified itself because of us. The adversary, verse 10, the adversary has spread out his hand upon all her pleasant things. For she hath seen that the heathen entered into her sanctuary, whom thou didst command that they should not enter into thy congregation. All her people sigh. They seek bread. They have given their pleasant things for meat to relieve the soul. See, O Lord, and consider, for I am become vile. Is it nothing to you, all ye that pass by? Behold, and see if there be any sorrow like unto my sorrow, which is done unto me, wherewith the Lord hath afflicted me in the day of his fierce anger. From above hath he sent fire into my bones, and it prevaileth against them. He hath spread a net for my feet. He hath turned me back. He hath made me desolate and faint all the day. The Lord has done this to Israel. This is why white privilege is still here. Because we're not doing what thus saith the Lord. He gave them the white privilege. He's allowing all of these people to go upside our head. So then why are you mad at them? I'm not. I know why this is happening. I can't be mad at nobody. I can't be mad at them. I can't be mad at myself. I can't be mad at my ancestors. And I can't be mad at God. That's why I got to humble and understand why this is happening. Verse 14, the yoke of my transgressions is bound by his hand. They are wreathed and come up upon my neck. He hath made my strength to fall. The Lord hath delivered me unto their hands, from whom I am not able to rise up. And we always talking about rising up. Let's get our money together. How you gonna take the money of somebody else to create your own nation? How are you gonna do that? Somebody hit me in my inbox and tell me how. How is it gonna work? Nothing's gonna work without the Lord's blessing. We read through this whole book over and over and over again, where the only time we were blessed is when the Lord was on our side. Every time we turned away, that's why people need to read the Old Testament. Y'all want to stay over there in Paul's writings and grace, 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 but then turn around and protest and go on the street and pray. I don't know why this is happening. Your pastors, a lot of them know, but they getting paid, and that's more important than their people. But the rest of you guys, you need to read this whole book, and you will see for yourself every time Israel got in trouble is because they did not keep the commandments of God. We've already read in Revelation 14 and 12, the patience of the saints. They kept the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, not the faith of Paul. Paul had the faith of Jesus. And remember, Paul was a Pharisee of Pharisees, right? So he kept the commandments of God. And when Jesus got to him, he kept the faith of Jesus. But your own shepherds pity you not. And then, like we just read in Lamentations, there's sorrow and woe. But the Lord is giving us a way out. He's telling us there's a way out. There's going to be a way out when he comes and opens up the door to the way out. But you got to be obedient. He didn't give us a clue about what to do before he comes to save ourselves. But if you ain't reading the Old Testament and you won't understand some things in the New Testament, you're not going to do what he say. You're just not. But I'm going to end this with this. 2 Chronicles 7, verse 14. Because like I said, the Lord has given us all a way out. All right. And not just Israel, all nations that have been put under the false doctrines that are out here in this world. Everybody has a way out, but he loves his people so much that he's telling them the way out first, and then we have to tell the rest of the nations the way out. Praise the Lord. 2 Chronicles 7 verse 14. If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. How do you seek the Lord's face? How do you turn from your wicked ways? 1 John 3:4 says that sin is the transgression of the law. So if you break the law, you are sinning. What you have to do is to try to not break the law the best you can. That's the Lord's grace, and that's his mercy, because the Father was going to be like, man, you sin, die. Jesus, as our intercessor, is sitting there like, Pops, give him some more time. I know he going to get it together. I believe he going to get it together. You gave me him as a sheep. I got faith in him. But as long as they got faith in me, I got faith in them. But they got to pray to me. Well, not me. I'm sorry. They got to pray to you, and I'm going to hear it. I'm going to be their intercessor. And the Father's like, okay, you was obedient to me. You died to do what I said. I'm going to listen to you now. If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, from sinning, from breaking the law, commandments of God, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. It's that simple. That's what we need to do to try to not get caught up in the white privilege. Because the white privilege ain't going nowhere until Jesus comes back. It's going to stay in existence to the last day. All right. So your best bet is to keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, or faith of Christ, however you want to say it, and be obedient. All right. So I thank y'all for watching. Share the video. I appreciate it, man. I thank y'all for tuning in. That's about it. White privilege. Why is it still in existence? Because we gave it over to the white man or the Gentiles, and now they rule the world until the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled. When is the times of the Gentiles going to be fulfilled? When Christ comes back. And then Christ is going to be the one that's going to take down all the nations, and he's going to establish his own nation that's going to be righteous, right? That's what he's going to do. That's what he said he was going to do. Hey, you ain't supposed to be playing. That's what he said he's going to do. So that's what we have to do, is to endure to the end. Keep these commandments and endure until the end, right? So I hope this lesson has inspired or blessed somebody out there in the mighty name of Jesus. I thank y'all for watching. I'm going to get myself ready now and get up out of here and go to class, a holy convocation that we're supposed to do. All right. So grace and peace in Jesus' name. Shabbat shalom. That's it. Now get off my line. Come on, close the apps. Go to class. Leave. Wake up to where?